Greeting, fellow survivors. So, today we have Sara, who is joining us for the telling of the second part of her epic tale of survival against the undead.
Hey.
But before we get started, be sure to lock the like button in a closet just to be safe, and then very quietly hit the notification bell so that you never miss a chapter of this epic saga. So, with that, let's go! Sara was trapped. There was definitely a zombie coming in through the cave's entrance. She could hear its footsteps crunching the shells she had put on the floor for just that purpose. Crunch, 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 crunch. It suddenly ran towards the fire, and Sara thought that it was now or never, and she started to run out of the cave as the intruder was distracted by her cooking meal next to the fire. "Wait!" cried out the intruder. Reflexively, Sara stopped and turned towards the intruder. Did zombies talk? She had no idea. "Wait," it said again. "I'm not a ghoul. My name is George. I'm a friend," said the intruder, as he took a step back and then eyed Sara's dinner. "Smells good in here," he said. That's what guided me to your hideout. You maybe should be a bit more careful. You never know who or what might find you." Well, as George got closer to the fire, Sara saw some blood on his arm. "Oh, you're hurt," she said. "No, it's not mine. I'm okay, really," said George, as he hid his arm behind him and continued towards the fire. Well, Sara was not so sure about that. Then again, why would someone lie about that? Mind if I warm up a bit? And without waiting for a reply, he chose a place next to the fire, the best place, and sat down. Sara was really starting to get a bit annoyed by the presence of this intruder now. Not only was he sitting in her spot, but he was also eyeing the fish that she was cooking, and she was not quite sure that she trusted him very much. He was acting so strange. However, eager to hear news from the outside, she put aside her growing annoyance and pushed half the fish she was cooking closer towards him, thinking that, well, at least now there might be some left for her. "So what's happening out there?" she finally asked, after an awkward pause. "Well, it isn't great," George said. "A lot of the cities have big fires going on, and of course there is no more electricity or phones or anything of the like. Most of the city folk chickened out and ran off to the countryside, so who knows what sort of things have been going on there." Sara could have guessed that by herself, so she thought that maybe George was not telling her everything, and maybe even had a secret he didn't want to share. "So, do you know how it's spread? Is there a cure?" she asked. "Boy, you don't know much, do you? What have you been doing all this time? Hiding in a cave? Ha ha!" he laughed. Now, that really made her mad, and Sara decided that she really didn't like him at all. And then, when George went to pick up the fish from next to the fire, Sara saw once again the blood on his arm, and now even what looked like a bite mark? "Are you sure you're not hurt?" she asked, thinking it really did look a lot like a bite mark. Now this really upset George, who quite suddenly got up and kicked the fire, scattering embers and the rest of Sara's meal everywhere. "Mind your own business!" he shouted and stormed away, finding a place to lie down. "I'm going to sleep now. You better keep quiet and not ask any more of your stupid questions," he said. Wow. Too shocked at this outburst to say anything, Sara just stood there and stared, though catching once more a glimpse of George's arm. Yeah, he definitely was wounded, and it looked like it was getting worse. This really bothered her, but she didn't quite know why. She also noticed a folded piece of paper that fell out of George's pocket as he stormed off, and thought, yeah, why not? Make a mess of it too while you're at it, but decided not to say anything. The mood was tense, and Sara decided she might as well try and get some rest too. Choosing a spot a little closer to the warmth of the fire, she lay down, staring at that little folded piece of paper, and now wondering if maybe it had some real news in it from the outside. Sara was not at ease, though. Dreams, dark and foreboding, had woven themselves into her subconscious. As she drifted deeper into sleep, the comforting crackle of the fire twisted into haunting whispers, even groans, like the horde she heard at the cabin back in what felt like ages ago in another life. Shadows, which previously had provided her with friendly companionship, danced menacingly on the cave walls now, and the gentle crashing of the waves at high tide outside took on an ominous, crunching tone. Then, an unnatural sound woke Sara up, from somewhere in the cave. Then she remembered George. It's just that horrible person, she thought, and tried closing her eyes again. But then she heard it again. She looked towards George, who was now tossing and turning, his eyes vacant and hollow, a strange and blood-curdling creaking escaping his lips again, and the world around them shifted into a nightmarish tableau as he seemed to turn and crawl towards her now. Sara recoiled in horror as she realized that the intruder had been transforming into one of those hideous creatures while she was asleep. Wide awake now, a nightmare unfolded before her, a twisted reality that felt all too real, and she knew that she had only seconds to act. No longer the sanctuary that it had once been, the cave had become a trap, maybe even a grave, one that Sara had to escape at all costs. She slowly backed up to where just the night before George had kicked her fish, and very carefully she picked it up, never quite keeping her eyes off of what is now almost a fully transformed zombie crawling towards her still. Seeing its eyes drawn to the movement of her arm, she thought that her idea had a very real chance of working. The zombie was now starting to make a horrible chatting noises with its teeth and get up on its feet. It was now or never. Sara quickly took the fish and she threw it aside, past the zombie's head, and in a direction away from the entrance of the cave. The zombie's gaze followed the fish as it flew in the air, and before it landed, it already started moving towards it. Just then, the path to freedom was clear, and Sara, knowing it was now or never, made a dash towards the cave's entrance, picking up the little folded piece of paper on her way out. What she would find outside the cave, I think, is a story for next time. But that's all for today, friends. I hope you liked this week's story. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for more epic adventures. And don't forget to very quietly hit the little notification bell so that you never miss a chapter of this epic saga. So, until we meet again, stay spooky and keep safe. Bye-bye.